Between 2019 and 2021, a series of specialized trucks secretly completed a 965-kilometer journey from the Scottish Highlands to the ancient Forest of Dean. Inside these sealed vehicles were not giant animals, but 35 pine martens, a species that has been extinct in this region for over 160 years. Arriving under the cover of darkness, the project team worked until nearly 3 a.m. to transfer the first individuals into artificial enclosures prepared 2 years prior. After 5 days of careful feeding and health checks, the doors were open. The shy animals vanished into the forest canopy, marking the true beginning of the scientists' work. Under the leadership of Dr. Catherine McNichol from the Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust, the team monitored the pine martens day and night using camera traps, radio signals, and den boxes. The population thrived exactly as planned. They established dens, hunted, and bred successfully, with at least 5 females raising kits. Their highly territorial nature even pushed younger individuals to expand their range into Shropshire, Herefordshire, and Wales. However, experts note that their main insights came from surveying droppings along forest trails, a low-cost but highly effective method for analyzing the diet and territory of pine martens. Through this, they discovered that invasive gray squirrels accounted for 14% of the pine marten's diet. That's right, they aren't a favorite food of the pine marten and only make up a very small portion of their diet. But somehow, the gray squirrels have become more cautious, less visible, and no longer as free as before. Things that humans struggle with even with modern technology, pine martens can easily handle. To truly understand why scientists are so excited, you have to understand that this story doesn't actually begin with them, but with the gray squirrel. If you live in North America, gray squirrels may feel completely ordinary. You see them in city parks, on college campuses, along backyard fences, or leaping across tree branches like tiny acrobats. They look harmless, familiar, almost charming. Gray squirrels are not native to England. They were brought from North America in the late 19th century, during the Victorian era, solely for the purpose of being fashionable ornamental pets for wealthy estates. At the time, no one could have predicted that these small, energetic animals would cause one of the most devastating ecological crises in British history, pushing native forests to the brink of extinction. When the gray squirrel population exploded, the first victims were the native red squirrels. Smaller, lighter, and more docile, the native red squirrel thrived in European forests for millennia, until they encountered aggressive cousins from America. The invasive gray squirrel fiercely competed with them for food, seized nesting sites, and monopolized territory. Worse still, the gray squirrels didn't come alone. They carried the virus that causes squirrel smallpox. While gray squirrels are completely immune, it was a swift death sentence for the native red squirrels. The consequences were tragic. By the time you watch this video, red squirrels have been wiped out from 95% of their historical range in England, their numbers plummeting to below 40,000, while gray squirrels have soared to 2.7 million. But it doesn't stop at the squirrels. Look closely at the trees themselves and you'll see the deep scars they've inflicted in the Forest of Dean. Aggressive gray squirrels strip the bark from trees to feed on sap, causing deep wounds that make native saplings susceptible to disease, stunted, and of course reduce the value of the timber, killing the young trees before they become part of the future forest. The British government once estimated the damage caused by gray squirrels to the forestry industry at around £37 million per year. If gray squirrels were such a massive threat, why didn't the pine martens stop them in the first place? When the gray squirrel population exploded across Britain, the pine martens were already gone, yet they had been completely wiped out. During the Victorian era, human ignorance disrupted the natural order. Pine martens were branded as ruthless pests, accused of raiding chicken coops and threatening game birds on wealthy estates. In an age where ecological balance was entirely misunderstood, humans declared war on them. Armed with steel traps, guns, and hunting dogs, they relentlessly eradicated these creatures. Compounding the slaughter, Britain's ancient forests were heavily logged to fuel industrial growth and agriculture. Stripped of both their habitat and their lives, this brilliant native predator vanished. In the Forest of Dean, the very last confirmed sighting of a pine marten was recorded around 1860. Look at the devastating chain reaction we created. Humans didn't just introduce a destructive, invasive species into Britain, we simultaneously eliminated the only native predator capable of keeping them in check. After the red squirrels declined and the gray squirrels took over, humans tried everything to regain control. They set traps, they launched extermination campaigns, they altered forest structures, and they even researched controlling the reproductive capacity of the invasive gray squirrel. But most of these solutions are man-made tools. While they may temporarily reduce gray squirrel populations in specific areas, the forest remains unbalanced. And that is exactly why the return of the pine marten is so revolutionary. In reality, the idea did not originate in the Forest of Dean. Before Dr. Catherine McNichol and her team took action, a critical proving ground had already been established to the west. Between 2015 and 2017, the Vincent Wildlife Trust pioneered a massive breakthrough by translocating 51 pine martens from Scotland into mid-Wales. This brave successfully established a viable, breeding population. What the conservation world witnessed next in Wales was nothing short of miraculous. Wherever pine marten numbers rose, gray squirrel populations plummeted, and the long-lost native red squirrels began returning to woodlands they had abandoned decades ago. This phenomenon was officially documented in a landmark 2018 study by Dr. Emma Sheehy and Professor Xavier Lambin. Their research proved that a pine marten revival could slow down and even reverse the relentless spread of invasive gray squirrels, effectively clearing a path for the red squirrel's return. But while pine martens aggressively suppressed the gray squirrels, they had almost zero negative impact on the native red squirrels. How is that even possible? If a pine marten hunts squirrels, shouldn't both species be in danger? The secret lies in evolutionary. Red squirrels and pine martens grew up together in Europe. The reds are hardwired to understand the threat. Weighing just 250 to 350 grams, the native red squirrel is an agile acrobat, built for the ultra-thin branches of the outer forest canopy. The moment a red squirrel catches a whiff of pine marten scent, its survival instincts kick into overdrive. It immediately shifts its feeding habits and climbs higher into safety. Now look at the gray squirrel. Imported from North America, this heavy rodent is twice the size, has a bulky body, and moves slowly on the slender branches. Importantly, they completely lack the evolutionary memory to avoid pine martens. Studies in Ireland have shown that gray squirrels barely react to the scent of pine martens, meaning they don't realize they are being hunted until it's too late. Consequently, as pine marten populations recovered in Ireland, gray squirrels disappeared from at least 6 Irish counties, and red squirrel populations also increased. This spectacular victory became the perfect model for the Forest of Dean. Recognized as England's first national forest park in 1938, human and natural life thrives, with visitors exploring winding trails, small villages nestled under the trees, and cafes scattered throughout the picturesque landscape. To help people understand green living and a balanced ecosystem, the Pine Marten Reintroduction project has been implemented in strict phases. The first 18 individuals were released in 2019, and another 17 were added in 2021. Adapting remarkably quickly to their new habitat, the native species immediately flourished. By 2022, the pine marten population in Forest of Dean had exceeded 40 individuals, with at least 4 litters born entirely in the wild, marking a historic transformation for the entire forest. The number of pine martens was not the only thing being watched. Researchers were also looking at how their return might affect the wider woodland. Camera traps, radio tracking, and scat analysis showed that gray squirrels were present in the pine marten's diet. At the same time, local observations suggested that gray squirrels were becoming less visible in some areas and may have been changing their behavior, similar to patterns reported in Scotland and Ireland. They appeared to move differently, adjust their activity, and spend more time alert to danger. This does not mean pine martens are simply squirrel killers. As Rebecca Wilson from Forestry England has explained, pine martens are native omnivores. They eat fruit, fungi, insects, birds, and a range of small animals. Gray squirrels are only one part of that diet. The bigger point is that the return of a native predator can restore a kind of pressure that has been missing from many English broadleaf woodlands for a very long time. That pressure may matter as much as direct predation. A gray squirrel does not need to be caught to be affected. If it spends more time watching for danger, less time feeding, or avoids places it once used freely, its daily behavior begins to change. Over time, those small changes can affect how a population uses the forest. Still, this is not a final result. Pine martens breed slowly, live at low density, and are very hard to see. Catherine McNichol from Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust has said that even if the population continues to recover, many people may walk through the Forest of Dean for years without ever seeing one. That is why the project needs long-term monitoring, not quick conclusions. A useful comparison is Yellowstone, but only on a smaller scale. When wolves returned there, elk did not simply disappear. They changed how they moved and where they fed. In the Forest of Dean, pine martens may be creating a quieter version of that effect. They are not removing every gray squirrel. They may simply be making the forest feel less safe for them. Although ecologists at Forest of Dean currently have no plans to release more pine martens, as they want to keep the population low for easier monitoring and to avoid creating a new imbalance in the future. This doesn't mean the project has stopped. In fact, positive signals from Forest of Dean are causing the idea to spread further southwest England. A prime example is Dartmoor, Devon. While Forest of Dean resembles a bustling old forest with villages, trails, and weekend tourists, Dartmoor is quite different. It's a region known for its vast moorlands, misty valleys, low oak forests, and rapidly changing weather, to the point that many Britons call it one of the wildest landscapes remaining in southern England. It was here that the pine marten disappeared approximately 150 years ago. In 2024, the Two Wildlands Pine Marten project transferred 15 adult pine marten from Scotland to Dartmoor, including 8 females and 7 males. Like the animals released in Forest of Dean, they underwent health checks, were placed in temporary enclosures in quiet woodlands, and given acclimatization time before being allowed to roam freely in their habitat. Then, in June 2025, the project recorded the first pine marten pups born from the animals reintroduced in Dartmoor. Later that year, the project continued in Exmoor, where another 19 pine martens were released. Forest of Dean was an initial signal. Dartmoor became the next chapter. Exmoor shows the idea is beginning to spread across southwest England, but opening the cage door is only the visible part of the work. The harder part comes afterward. Pine martens are solitary, wide-ranging animals, and if only 1 or 2 are released without a proper plan, they may travel long distances looking for mates and become hazardous to road traffic. That is why conservation groups emphasize planned releases, health screening, radio tracking, suitable habitat, and long-term monitoring. In the Two Moors project, the animals are expected to have kits and slowly spread across the southwest over the next few years. This is intended as a permanent reintroduction, not a short experiment. This is also why projects such as Martens on the Move are important. Their work is not only about the pine marten itself, it includes improving habitat, monitoring population expansion, training volunteers, and working with communities, landowners, and woodland managers, so people understand what the return of a native carnivore really means. The story of the pine marten is not finished. In the Forest of Dean, Dartmoor, Exmoor, and beyond, scientists are still watching carefully to see whether this quiet predator can help restore a balance that was broken more than a century ago. For the red squirrel, this is not a guaranteed rescue. Gray squirrels are still widespread, disease is still a threat, and healthy woodlands still need protection. But for the first time in many years, the red squirrel may have something it has been missing, a natural ally in the forest. Maybe the answer was never only more traps, more control, or more human intervention. Maybe part of the answer was simply returning a missing piece of nature. What do you think? Can pine martens really help bring red squirrels back, or is this hope still too early? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more real wildlife stories from around the world.